And it looks like we are live. Good morning, everyone. Good morning to all the Australians. Good afternoon and good evening to anybody who is in the USA. Hope everybody's well. It's right bang on 10 o'clock. So we are going to kick it off and get things going. Tell me, just let me know, please, in the comments below. Let me know if you can hear me, if everything's coming across loud and clear. Tell me where you're from. I'd love to know where everybody's from and how far we're reaching with all of this. So that would be awesome. Also, just a quick thing, with questions, I won't answer questions as we go through. When we get to the end, I will pull up the questions and go through those. So make sure that we all get them all answered. So today we're going to talk all about bloating. So just before we get into that, my name is Joanna Baker. I am a dietitian and a registered nurse. I've been working in healthcare for 26 years now. I was just thinking back the other day about all the things that I've done, and I've had a really exciting career and it's been really awesome. Something that I'm really passionate about is helping people. So at the moment, I am the owner and founder of Everyday Nutrition. So we are gut health specialist dietitians. We work in IBS and food intolerances, and we really love to help people who have got digestive problems resolve their digestive problems so that they can get back to enjoying life again. And bloating is often a really big part of that. I would say that bloating is probably the most common symptom that we see in our practice. So this is a topic that is really close to my heart. I have gut problems myself, and bloating is something that I've dealt with throughout my life. I've had good times and bad times with it, but it's something that I certainly know well. Before we get going, I do need to give a quick shout out to Kfibre. So we are on the Kfibre Facebook page. Kfibre is a prebiotic that loves your gut, and it's a prebiotic fibre, and it really helps look after that gut microbiome in the same sort of way as you would put fertiliser in your garden to fertilise your garden and help it grow well and grow healthy. Kfibre works like that in your gut, so it really nourishes that gut microbiome, helps it grow, helps those gut bacteria be really healthy, so that they can then in turn look after you. At this live, so we are having this live in particular because Kfibre, this is our volume 2 of our I Just Feel Better recipe book. There are 8 recipes in here, all using Kfibre. All recipes have got low FODMAP modifications, gluten-free modifications, and dairy-free modifications, just to help you look after your gut, nourish your gut, and help you feel better in general. Do hang around to the end of this live because I will be popping the link up to download this for free at the end. So make sure that you hang around. So what are we going to talk about today? So we're going to talk about what bloating actually is. We're going to talk about what causes bloating. We're going to talk about when to see your doctor. We're going to talk about how to treat bloating, and we're going to touch on how to prevent bloating as well. So I do have my notes here so that I don't forget anything. So if I keep looking down, it's just to make sure that I am still on track. So to kick it off, first of all, what is bloating? So bloating is essentially, it's that feeling where your tummy is over full. It might feel stretched. You might also have some cramps associated with that because that bloating is pushing on all those nerves around in your gut, and those nerves are getting upset about it. It may be associated with burping or wind or diarrhea or constipation, swelling, lots of gassiness and that sort of thing. It happens essentially when the organs of your digestive system, so we've got obviously when you eat food, it comes in through your mouth, down through your esophagus, into your stomach. Your stomach is essentially a giant blender. It mixes everything up into a smoothie type consistency, releases it into the small intestine. Food travels through the small intestine. All the nutrients like the vitamins and minerals and things all get absorbed from the small intestine into the body. then passes into the large intestine, and will eventually leave, what's left over will leave the body when you have a bowel movement. And it's all of those organs that we're really talking about here. It's when they're stretched, when they're full of either liquid or gas or solids, and it's kind of sitting in that part. It's sort of stretching the walls of the intestines, it's pushing on all those nerve endings around there. Those nerve endings are getting upset, they're kicking that gut-brain axis into action, and they're making you feel overfull and over bloated, and it can be really, really uncomfortable. The other time it happens, and this kind of happens, it can happen for various reasons, but one of the things can be when food is moving quite slowly, so there might be too much there, or the food might be moving too slowly through your digestive tract, or if you and that can happen if the muscles of your diaphragm are contracting instead of relaxing, so that's going to increase that sort of fullness and that slowness of the digestive tract as well. For some people, bloating is also accompanied with distension, where that tummy starts sticking out and you start looking like you're 6 months pregnant. For other people, the tummy doesn't really stick out that much, and how far the tummy sticks out, or if you're a person whose tummy sticks out a long way, or if you're another person whose tummy doesn't stick out, that doesn't mean that your bloating is not uncomfortable and it's not severe. It just means that our bodies are all different, and our bodies will display the bloating in different ways. So for some people it'll stick out, for some people it'll be painful, for some people it'll stick out and be painful as well. So it's not necessarily, it just means that some people are stretchier than other people, and that's all it is. What causes bloating? So there are a few different things that can cause bloating. So most of if it's gas in our tummy, usually that gas is created by swallowing a lot more air, maybe from chewing gum or from drinking through straws, drinking lots of fizzy drinks, eating really fast, swallowing it. Obviously, when you eat fast or if you talk when you're eating, people tend to swallow a lot more air. That creates gas in the gut, and that can make you feel bloated as well. If you've eaten a really particularly large meal, so it's actually, some bloating is actually quite normal, and it's normal to feel full and bloated if you've eaten a really particularly large meal. If your meal has been super rich or salty or spicy or fatty, fat actually can slow down the digestive tract, so things are going to move through a bit more slower if it's quite a fatty meal, and that can make you feel bloated as well. The other reason that gas gets created in the digestive tract is, and here we're talking about that large intestine down the bottom where that gut microbiome lives, so all those gut bacteria that live there. When you eat foods that are quite high in fibre or FODMAPs, they resist digestion. They don't get digested. They stay in the digestive tract and go down to that large intestine. And that large intestine, the bacteria that live there, they will feed on the fibre and they'll feed on the FODMAPs. And when they feed, they create gas as a side effect. And that gas that's created can make people feel quite uncomfortable and quite bloated as well. So eating a meal that's particularly high in fibre, a lot of people will feel quite bloated after that. Particularly, we all know that baked beans create gas, and baked beans are high in fibre and they're high in FODMAP, so that can essentially make you feel quite bloated as well. These sorts of things, if that bloating is only happening occasionally and it's directly related to something like this, it's not something that I would be particularly concerned about. It's essentially a little bit of bloating and a few gut fluctuations day to day are actually quite normal. And it's actually almost a reflection that you've got quite a healthy diet, you've got good amounts of fibre in your diet, you're eating quite a varied diet if you've got a few fluctuations every so often. In some situations, that bloating and that discomfort does become chronic, and it might be happening more often than what we would be considering normal. And when that bloating and discomfort is happening more often, it might be caused by constipation. So constipation can be a big cause. You fill that intestine with stool, and when it's all backed up, that's gonna feel uncomfortable. That's gonna make you feel backed up. That's gonna make you feel full. Other things that can cause bloating would be things like celiac disease, food intolerances, so you might be more sensitive to some of the high FODMAP foods, you might have food chemical sensitivities, you might have whole food sensitivities, and these are making you feel more bloated than what we would consider normal. You might have irritable bowel syndrome, so obviously bloating is one of the most common symptoms I see in people with irritable bowel syndrome. Certainly things like hormones and menstrual cycles, they can affect bloating. So it's super common for women to feel bloated and distended and full of water in the days leading up to their period. So that would be considered normal bloating. That's not saying that you necessarily have to live with it, because there are things we can do about it. But it sort of gives it that explanation that this is a normal thing that can happen and there's not something wrong. Some medications can make you feel bloated, and stress. So many of us carry our stress in our gut. If you've ever felt butterflies in your tummy, you know, that's your gut-brain axis, and that's that stress causing that. We do see bloating as a result of stress and things as well. So that can absolutely happen. So obviously there's a few different things, some of them to be concerned about and some of them are not. So how do you know when it's time to actually go to the doctor and do something about it? So in the medical system, we have a few of these what we call red flag symptoms. Now, oftentimes the red flag symptoms don't mean anything at all, but they can mean that something is a little bit more serious. And these are things that if they come up, we say that they need to be investigated just to rule out anything more sinister. And that might be something like if you're bloating, your chronic bloating is accompanied by chronic diarrhea, so you're getting quite a bit of diarrhea. We really want to check that out and work out why you're getting a lot of that diarrhea. Certainly if you're getting bleeding, if there's blood in the stool or blood in the toilet bowl, that absolutely needs to get checked out. If the pain is particularly severe, so we rate pain on a scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is no pain at all and 10 is the worst pain ever. If you've got if the pain is mild, then we don't get too upset about it. But if you're starting to head up towards that more moderate or that more severe zone, that's not something we consider normal, and we want to know what's going on there. So really severe pain would need to be checked out. Absolutely, unexplained weight loss is one of those red flag symptoms. We want to know what's going on there, what's causing that unexplained weight loss. Is that something that we need to be addressed? And any sort of sudden change in your toileting habits. So if you've been tracking along quite nicely most of your life, going with a regular toileting routine, and that suddenly changes, the frequency might change. So maybe you're going every day and you're suddenly going 3 times or 4 times a day, or maybe you've gone from going every day to once every 4 days. Maybe you go every second day and all of a sudden you're going twice a day. So those sort of sudden changes we want to get checked out. And any sudden changes in the stool form. So if you've been doing nice sausage shaped poops all your life, and then all of a sudden you change and they become loose and watery, or they become more like rabbit poop, we want to check those sorts of sudden changes out to see what's going on with there as well. So if you can kind of tick off all of those things and say, lastly, family history. So this is another red flag symptom. If you've got a family history of things like bowel cancers or inflammatory bowel diseases and things like that, then absolutely you want to be getting those checked out too. So if you can go through those and tick those all off and say, no, that's not me, but I'm still getting this bloating all the time, and it's really starting to impact on my quality of life. You know, I'm having to loosen my pants as soon as I get home from work most days. There are a few things that you can start doing to see if they make a difference. And my first one is to start eating smaller meals. So really large meals cause bloating. So make your meals that little bit smaller. That might mean that they become more regular. So you might have been having 3 really big meals and you want to reduce the size of those meals. So you might start having sort of 4 or 5 or even 6 smaller meals and sort of spreading them evenly throughout the day. The body really loves routine, and giving your body that routine can make a really big difference. And this is one of the reasons I'm not a huge advocate of things like intermittent fasting, because when people go for long times or periods of times without eating, the body biologically has a need for food, and the longer you go without eating, the more hunger signals the body's going to get. And hunger can be a bit like a rubber band, where you pull it and pull it and pull it and pull it tight, and eventually it's going to ping and it's going to go back the other way. And we find that when people are ignoring those hunger signals and pushing that time out, it gets to the point where they just get so hungry that they're just going to eat anything and everything that's in front of them, anything that's easy to get to. They tend to eat faster than what they would normally. They tend to eat more than what they would normally. And then we see bloating and discomfort as a result. You know, it's logical, it's biology. So breaking those meals up, eating smaller, more regular meals during the day, that can often make quite a big difference to bloating. We want to be eating slowly. We want to be mindfully. We're eating mindfully. We want to be chewing our food really well. So digestion begins in the mouth. You've got those salivary enzymes there that help start breaking down those foods and breaking down those carbohydrates already in the mouth. So make sure that you're chewing your food well. Make sure that you're enjoying your food and you're in a nice, comfortable setting. Put out a tablecloth, get out the nice cutlery, get out some nice glasses. You know, champagne always tastes better out of a crystal glass, and you really want to be enjoying that experience of eating, and it needs to be comfortable, it needs to be peaceful. If you're wanting to address something with a partner or another family member, don't do it during a mealtime. You know, keep meal times happy, friendly. They create that nice feeling around food and make you feel relaxed and enjoy the meal. And food is enjoyable, and we want to be enjoying our foods. You know, it's not, food isn't only about nutrition, it's about social connection, it's about enjoyment, it's about pleasure. So make sure that you're getting those benefits of eating your meals. Balance your meals. This is a big one. When I'm talking about balancing your meals, I'm talking about making sure that you've got some high fiber carbs in there, you've got some proteins in there, you've got some fats in there, you've got some fruits and vegetables, and you're covering off a few different food groups and a few different nutrients. So what that might mean is that instead of having a really big bowl of pasta, you eat this big bowl of pasta, and everybody says, oh, whenever I eat pasta I get bloated afterwards. Why don't we reduce the amount of pasta in that bowl, and let's add some protein and let's have some veggies and make it a more balanced meal. And having those more balanced meals, they go a long way to helping you feel satisfied, because there's a difference between being full and being satisfied. And balancing your meals will help you feel more satisfied after eating. And they're also going to help with digestion. They're going to help with processing the foods, and that can help you feel better overall and reduce bloating in that way. Obviously, fizzy drinks, chewing gum, drinking through straws, they all cause you to swallow more gas. If you're chugging down half a litre of Coke with your dinner, there's a lot of gas in there, and all that gas is going to go somewhere. So don't scull your drinks. Drink it like your food. Enjoy it. Enjoy the flavours. Enjoy the textures. But try not to overdo the fizzy drinks if you're getting a lot of bloating. That doesn't mean that you can never have them, but you might want to reduce them and see if that has an impact on reducing your bloating as well. The other thing that you can really do that's really important for bloating is if you're feeling backed up, let's see if we can address any constipation and let that gut keep that everything moving more smoothly all the way through instead of getting stuck halfway along the way. So that might be using something like making sure you're getting enough fibre in your foods. Kiwi fruit is magical for constipation. Magnesium can be really helpful, and Kfibre as well. We need to remember our Kfibre. So the type of fibre that's in Kfibre, it has what we call laxation effects. So it helps the stool and the fecal matter move through more smoothly and more easily. The other benefit of adding in that Kfibre is that not only are you going to get more frequent bowel movements, they're going to be more comfortable bowel movements, but it's also going to nourish that gut microbiota with the prebiotics in here. Kfibre is also, and this is something that sets Kfibre apart from some of the other fibres, is that it's actually a complex fibre. And what that means is that most fibres have been isolated from the plant they came from, and they've been heat treated. And that heat treating, it kills off things like antioxidants and polyphenols. And the thing with Kfibre is that it's a complex fibre that hasn't been heat treated. So it does have all those polyphenols and antioxidants and things in there as well that are really good for that gut microbiome too. So not only is it going to help keep the bowels more regular, it's also going to nourish that gut microbiome on the way through too, which is awesome. Now, so you've gone through all of those strategies, you've tried a few of those things, and they're really not making a big difference. This is our this is our other red flag symptom, is that you've addressed all those healthy eating guidelines. You're eating balanced meals, you're getting all your food groups, you're eating slowly, you're enjoying your foods, you're not constipated, or you're not backed up, or maybe you are backed up and you've tried a few of these sort of what we call first line treatments to address that, and the first line treatments are not helping. This is the next time that we say, okay, it's time to go and get checked out with your doctor. What we need to do, we need to go to your doctor. You want to be running a few blood tests, and you want to be running a few stool tests. Your doctor's he may recommend some x-rays. He may recommend things like MRIs and CT scans and things, so that he can get a bit of a better idea of what's going on inside that gut, but also a better idea of what's going on so one of the things that we want to test for at this point would be for celiac disease. Celiac disease, to test for it, the first test is a blood test where we look for antibodies that are produced when somebody with celiac disease eats wheat. So you do need to be eating wheat in your diet. You do need to have this blood test before you start changing your diet. So we want to be checking for celiac disease. We want to make sure that we're not dealing with celiac disease. We're not dealing with something like IBD. We're not dealing with cancers, because these are all medical conditions that have very specific treatments. And we don't want to be treating you for irritable bowel syndrome and then find out 8 months down the track that you've actually got a bowel cancer, or you've got an inflammatory bowel disease or celiac disease or something. We want to know this before we start treating you for IBS. So go along to your doctor, blood test for celiac disease, checking your iron levels, doing a stool test, checking for things like parasites, checking for inflammatory markers, all of that sort of thing. If you've got any family history or any red flag symptoms, your GP might say, look, I think we need to go along and see a gastroenterologist, and we might be looking at something like a gastroscopy or a colonoscopy. We want to make sure that all of that is clear. If anything comes up there, then obviously your doctor is then going to be able to treat it and going to recommend a treatment going forward. If nothing comes up there, and look, more often than not, nothing comes up other than that peace of mind that there's nothing seriously wrong, which is a really good thing. But if nothing comes up, that's when it's time to book in to see a dietitian. So, and this is where dietitians who specialize in gastrointestinal and digestive conditions, we really come into our own, in that the doctor's sitting there saying, well, I can't find anything wrong with you, and the patient's sitting there going, but why am I feeling like this? And it can be really frustrating for both parties. And that's generally where we might diagnose something like irritable bowel syndrome or a food sensitivity or something like that. Management of those things is purely done through diet. So there are no tests that we can do for food sensitivity. I know there's if you go Googling, you're going to find a whole lot of things like blood tests and stuff and IgG tests, but none of these are known to accurately diagnose a food sensitivity or a food intolerance. In fact, ASCIA, which is the Australian Society for Clinical Immunology and Allergy, warn against using these because they lead to inaccurate diagnosis, they delay treatment, they can cause an unnecessary restriction. So, and we don't want to unnecessarily avoid foods that are delicious. And so don't head down those paths. The gold standard for identifying a food sensitivity is Elimination Diet, followed by food challenges. And what our dietitians do is we will sit down with someone, we will go through their symptoms, their symptom history, what they've tried, what's worked, what hasn't worked, what medications they're taking, their any medical history. We want to make sure that the GP has investigated all the blood tests and things that need to be done. Then we want to talk to you about what your diet, so what you're currently eating, and we want to know what you suspect you're triggering this bloating and this discomfort. And all of that puts together a puzzle for us. That puzzle will more often than not really indicate one way or another in terms of what looks like going on in terms of a food sensitivity or a food intolerance. And from there we will usually say, well, look, this is what looks like what is going on. What we need to do to confirm that is we need to do an elimination diet, and this is the elimination diet that suits you best. So sometimes it'll be a FODMAP diet, sometimes it'll be salicylate, sometimes it'll be amines, sometimes it'll be dairy, sometimes it'll be wheat, but this is what we specialize in, is putting that puzzle together and working out what is the next best step for you in terms of that elimination diet. The elimination diet is essentially a trial to say, does removing this molecule from your food, does that give you an improvement in your bloating? If it does, that tells us we're on the right track, but it still doesn't tell us for sure what is causing your bloating. So the next step is to do that reintroduction, because it's that reintroduction and that ability to cause that bloating is what gives us that confidence that yes, that is what's triggering it. I can't tell you the number of people that I've seen that have removed dairy and wheat and FODMAPs and felt 100 times better. And when we've reintroduced them all one at a time, they've got this really pleasant surprise that actually I tolerate all of these things. And the improvement wasn't because you removed the wheat, but it was because when you removed the wheat, you also coincidentally removed this other molecule as well, or you changed your diet, or you removed the wheat and you replaced it with something else. And sometimes it's what you're coincidentally removing, sometimes it's what you're replacing it with that's making the difference. And this is where we really specialize, is giving the people that confidence and that knowledge to really pinpoint what is triggering you. Because food sensitivities and food intolerances do not cause damage, they do not involve the immune system, then it becomes purely about management. How much do we need to restrict you? How much you've got your food on one hand, you've got your bloating on the other hand, and working out where that balance sits. And there is no right or wrong answer to that. It's all about how far you want to limit yourself on any given day, because the answer can be different from one day to the next day. And what that improvement, what that restriction is giving you in terms of improvement in symptoms, and is it worth it, and is it a trade-off? And that's where we come to eventually from that elimination and that reintroduction process. I think I went off on a bit of a tangent there. I get quite passionate when I start talking about that diet and nutrition stuff. So we're up to our last part now, is can bloating be prevented? And yes, it can, but at the same time, we don't want zero bloating. So having zero bloating and zero fluctuations is not normal either. So what we want to do is we want to work out that point where you get a few fluctuations day to day, your diet is as wide and varied as possible, but it's not painful, it's not uncomfortable, you're not having to put your tracksuit pants in the boot of the car so you can get changed into your tracksuit pants on the way home from work or something like that. That's what we want to be avoiding, working out where that balance is. Some of the things that you can do to help prevent the bloating is making sure that you're eating a balanced diet, getting your whole grains, getting your fruits, getting your vegetables, getting your nuts, getting your seeds, eating plenty of fibre, aiming for that 30 grams of fibre a day, which is what's recommended. Reducing that sort of highly processed, super fatty, convenience type foods. It's not that you can never eat them, but you don't want to be eating them for every single meal. So reducing those sorts of things. Enjoying a glass of wine occasionally, but not overdoing the alcohol. Eating slowly and mindfully. We talk about and honouring your hunger and respecting your fullness. So listen to your body. When your body says that it's had enough and that it's satisfied, it might be time to put that knife and fork down and go and do something else. So not overeating, and eating slowly and mindfully and enjoying your food can help people be satisfied with that good serving size. Include regular movement. So you don't have to go out and run a marathon, but we want you to be moving. So movement is really good for digestion. And including that regular movement in your day, I always say to people, I actually don't care what movement you do. What I care about is if you enjoy it. So play around with a few different types of movement, find a movement you enjoy, because what's important is that you are sustainable and that you keep doing it. And if you enjoy it, you're much more likely to keep doing it than if it's a chore to do it. So find something you enjoy, do it regularly. That movement really helps digestion. It helps things move through. If you smoke, stop smoking. Smoking is way too expensive anyway, and it's really not good for you. So kick that habit. And include a low FODMAP prebiotic fibre. So Kfibre, it is FODMAP friendly certified, so you know that it's going to be well tolerated, it's going to sit well in your gut, it's going to nourish that gut microbiome, it's going to look after you, and it's going to help you just feel better. So I think we're doing well. 29 minutes. I said I wanted to aim for 20 to 30 minutes. So here we are. A huge shout out to Kfibre to thank you for having me today. I really love doing these lives. We're going to launch volume 3 of our cookbook. Hopefully in December will be a celebration cookbook, and we'll be doing another one of these lives. I'm going to pop the link below. This is volume 2 of the cookbook. This is volume 1, so that was our last one. So I will pop the link below for anybody who is at this live. You can download these 2 cookbooks for free. If you're looking to connect with me and find out more about me, you can find me. So I run Low FODMAP Australia, which is a low FODMAP Facebook group. Everyday Nutrition, I'm the owner and founder of Everyday Nutrition, and Everyday Nutrition at the Gut Health Dietitians is our Facebook page. You can find me on Instagram at the Gut Health Dietitian, and of course our website is everydaynutrition.com.au. We do see people virtually, so we see people worldwide. My dietitians, I've got an amazing team of dietitians that are all handpicked, not only because they're of their skills when it comes to things like gut health and IBS and food intolerance, but they're actually really awesome people as well who enjoy food, and we know that food is for enjoyment. So I've been quite fussy about who we have on our team, and they're all amazing. I'm going to go through now and answer a few questions. If you're wanting to get some Kfibre, you can order it online from kfibre.com. So let's just have a scroll down and see what questions. Oh, we've got lots of comments. Melbourne. Yeah, I'm waiting for our Melbourne summer. I'm hoping it's going to be a bit warmer. And Bronda's in California. Oh, people in England, it's the middle of the night for you guys. Welcome. I feel quite flattered that you got up in the middle of the night to come and listen to us. South Australia, I love Adelaide. Where are we? So, bitter herbs like Iberogast helps a ton with contractions. Yeah, Iberogast is one of the few supplements that actually does have some good clinical research behind it and can be really beneficial. So Iberogast is cool. GMOs on grains is why gluten-free and organic is best. Look, interestingly, when we do look at the science on that, when we look at the nutritional quality of regular fruits and vegetables versus organic, nutritionally there's really not much difference. If you enjoy it organic and you can afford it, go for it. If you can't afford it, or you don't have the time, then you're not really missing out on anything either. Is there a different cause if your bloating is lower or upper in your tummy? Great question, Hallie. Yeah, it can give us a bit of an indication as to what's going on. And it certainly can make a difference in terms of how we treat that. So if it's more in that upper tummy, we could be looking, often I'd be looking at things like your speed of eating, your size of your meals directly, and looking at addressing that initially. If it's more in that sort of lower tummy, that's indicating that it's more intestinal, then we might be looking more at the fibres and the FODMAP sorts of things. Is Kfibre okay with acid reflux? I'm thinking that might be your question. And interestingly, Heather, yes, absolutely it is. And there is some really good research behind Kfibre that shows when it comes to things like dietary indigestion, that about 2 grams a day is super beneficial, and people have been able to reduce their reflux medications and reduce that dietary indigestion, which is cool. We do recommend taking Kfibre regularly because it is a powder. You can have larger doses or smaller doses as well. So I hope that answers your question, Hallie. Oh, there's a Joanna Baker. I get called Joanne all the time. Nice to meet you, Joanne. Diverticulitis, does that cause bloating? I think so. Diverticulitis generally causes quite pain. So diverticular, where you've got your bowel is kind of like this tube, and diverticular occur when there is a weakening in the wall of the bowel and we get little pockets coming out the side. Diverticular is super, super common. And certainly by the time we get to age about 60, there are more people with diverticular than there are without. Diverticular, if they're just sitting there doing nothing, are not an issue. Sometimes they do get inflamed or they do get infected, and that's when we start calling it diverticulitis. Diverticulitis, that can absolutely cause symptoms. If that's going on, then we do need to treat the infection with some antibiotics. One of the things that we really like to do to prevent that happening and to manage that if it's causing you lots of problems is that we want to keep people pooping regularly. So we want to prevent any constipation, because constipation is always going to worsen diverticular and increase because it puts pressure on the walls of the intestines. So I would be more often than not adding some Kfibre to that, and then looking at some healthy eating guidelines initially, so making sure you're balanced and all of that, and then from there we would say, okay, do we need to go further? Anyway, I think that's all our questions, so I hope everybody has enjoyed that. I'm going to say goodbye. I'm going to say have a lovely evening. Keep popping your questions up. We will come back and we will answer your questions in the comments. Good to see you all. Have a lovely afternoon, lovely evening, and for those of you in the UK, have a good night's sleep.